Beast Mode Discipline. The Mental Blueprint for High Performers. Introduction. Unlocking Beast Mode. You've seen them. The people who seem immune to distraction. Who show up every single day, rain, shine, motivated or not. They're not superhuman. They're not blessed with some magical gene you lack. But they do have something different, an operating system that runs on discipline, not desire. This isn't another book about finding your why, or manifesting your dreams. This is about the cold, hard mechanics of high performance in a world engineered to distract you. Because here's the truth, every app on your phone, every streaming service, every social media platform has a team of PhDs whose sole job is to hijack your attention. They're winning. And unless you build a different system, a mental blueprint that makes focus automatic and discipline inevitable, you'll keep losing. What separates high performers from everyone else? The difference is this: high performers have internalized a fundamental truth that most people never accept. They know that feelings are optional, but action is mandatory. They've built a psychological infrastructure that makes execution the default, not the exception. Think about it. On any given morning, what percentage of people actually want to go to the gym? Maybe 5%. But what percentage of serious athletes go anyway? Nearly 100%. That gap, that's discipline. That's the mental blueprint. Introducing Beast Mode Discipline. Let's be clear about what Beast Mode Discipline isn't. It's not about grinding yourself into dust. It's not a toxic hustle culture repackaged. It's not about ignoring your health or relationships in pursuit of arbitrary goals. Beast Mode Discipline is a comprehensive approach to building the mental infrastructure that makes high performance sustainable. It's about understanding how your brain actually works, the neuroscience of willpower, the psychology of resistance, the behavioral economics of decision-making, and using that knowledge to design a life where discipline becomes your default mode of operation. When you're in beast mode, you're not constantly battling yourself. You've eliminated the internal negotiation that drains most people's energy. You've automated the hard stuff. You've created an environment, an identity where doing the work isn't a daily debate, it's just what you do. How this book will help you build unshakable focus, resilience, and consistency. Here's what we're going to build together. First, we'll demolish the motivation myth, the lie that keeps you waiting for the right feeling before you act. You'll learn why discipline, not inspiration, is the only reliable fuel for achievement. Then we'll reverse engineer the mindset of elite performers. Not the highlight reel, but the actual psychological patterns that separate consistent executors from chronic starters. You'll understand how to rewire your relationship with discomfort, challenge, and failure. We'll get practical about building discipline like you'd build any other strength, progressively, systematically, with science-backed protocols. You'll learn the neuroscience of habit formation and why your current approach probably isn't working. You'll discover why environment design matters more than willpower, and how to architect your surroundings to make discipline the path of least resistance. We'll explore the routines and rituals that turn intention into automation. Because discipline without energy is just burnout waiting to happen, we'll tackle the physiological foundations of sustained performance: sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery. High performers aren't just mentally tough, they're intelligently fueled. We'll confront resistance head-on, why you procrastinate on meaningful work, how to navigate low motivation days, and practical tools for staying on track when everything in you wants to quit. You'll build accountability systems that actually work, not just feel-good check-ins, but measurement frameworks that create real behavior change. And finally, you'll learn how to sustain beast mode long-term without burning out, because discipline is a lifestyle, not a sprint. This book is your blueprint. Not theory. Not inspiration porn. An actual, implementable system for becoming the person who does the work every time, on time, regardless of how you feel. The question isn't whether you're capable of beast mode discipline. You are. The question is, are you ready to build it? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Myth of Motivation. If I had $1 for every time someone told me they were waiting to feel motivated, I could retire. But I'd be miserable, because I know that most of those people are still waiting. Here's the hard truth that will either liberate you or piss you off: motivation is a myth. Or more precisely, waiting for motivation is a losing game that high performers stopped playing years ago. Why waiting for motivation is a losing game? Let's talk about neuroscience for a minute. Motivation, that feeling of excitement and readiness to act, is primarily driven by dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward anticipation. When you imagine achieving something, dopamine surges. You feel energized, motivated. But here's the problem: dopamine is fickle. It's designed to be. Your brain's reward circuitry evolved in an environment where immediate action meant survival. That system wasn't built for delayed gratification or long-term goals. It was built for see food, eat food, or see threat, run. Stanford neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky's research shows that dopamine spikes highest in conditions of uncertainty, when you might get a reward. Once rewards become predictable, dopamine drops. This is why motivation fades after the initial excitement of starting something new. Your brain literally gets bored with certainty. Think about it: you're incredibly motivated to start a new diet on Monday. By Wednesday, motivation has left the building. Why? Because your brain has already gotten its dopamine hit from imagining the outcome. The actual execution? That's just work, and work doesn't spike dopamine the same way fantasy does. Research from the University of Pennsylvania's Behavior Change for Good initiative reveals something fascinating. People who rely on motivation are 3 to 4 times more likely to abandon their goals within the first month compared to those who rely on systems and habits. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. How discipline outperforms inspiration every time. Discipline is the polar opposite of motivation. While motivation is an emotion, variable, unpredictable, weather-dependent, discipline is a practice. It's a skill. And like any skill, it gets stronger with use. Here's why discipline wins. Consistency beats intensity. Angela Duckworth's groundbreaking research on grit showed that sustained effort over time, not bursts of passionate work, predicts achievement. The person who writes 500 words every single day will finish more books than the person who writes 5,000 words when inspired. Discipline builds identity. Every time you act despite not feeling like it, you're casting a vote for the type of person you're becoming. James Clear calls this identity-based habits. When you run even when you don't want to, you're not just exercising, you're becoming a runner. That identity shift is more powerful than any temporary motivation. Discipline creates its own momentum. Newton's first law applies to human behavior too. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. When you build a disciplined practice, you create behavioral momentum. Starting becomes easier because you're already moving. Motivation, on the other hand, requires you to generate momentum from scratch every single time. The research backs this up. A study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that automaticity, doing something without conscious motivation, was a far better predictor of behavior maintenance than initial motivation levels. The people who succeeded long-term weren't the most motivated, they were the most automatic. Let's get concrete. Because theory is nice, but examples are what make this real. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL commander and leadership consultant, has a simple philosophy. Discipline equals freedom. He wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every single day. Not when he feels like it. Not when he's motivated. Every single day. In his words, don't expect to be motivated every day to get out there and make things happen. You won't be. Don't count on motivation. Count on discipline. Maya Angelou wrote every single one of her books using the same system. She'd rent a hotel room, arrive at 6:30 a.m., and write until 2 p.m. every day. She told her biographer that she rarely felt inspired to write. She just showed up and did the work. The inspiration, she said, came during the work, not before it. Jerry Seinfeld famously used the "don't break the chain" method. He put a big calendar on his wall and marked an X every day he wrote jokes. His only rule: don't break the chain. Not write great jokes. Not feel inspired. Just write, mark the X, and don't break the chain. That discipline is distilled to its essence. Kobe Bryant didn't become one of basketball's greatest because he was more talented than everyone else. His trainer revealed that Kobe would practice at 4 a.m. before team practice, then stay late after. While other players trained when they felt good, Kobe trained on a schedule. His discipline created skill that looked like talent. What's remarkable about these examples isn't that these people never felt unmotivated. They felt unmotivated constantly. The difference is they built systems that made their feelings irrelevant to their actions. Here's the pattern you'll notice in every high performer. They've divorced action from emotion. They don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" They ask, "Is this what I do?" And if the answer is yes, they do it. This isn't about being robotic or ignoring your humanity. It's about understanding that your feelings are terrible managers. They're great advisors. They tell you important things about your needs and values, but they're catastrophic at running your daily operations. The motivation myth keeps people trapped in a cycle. Feel motivated, take action, lose motivation, stop action, wait for motivation to return. It's exhausting and ineffective. The discipline blueprint is different. Decide what matters, design a system, execute the system, repeat. Feelings are welcome to come along for the ride, but they're not driving. So here's your first mental shift. Stop waiting to feel like it. Stop checking your motivation levels before you act. Start understanding that action creates motivation far more often than motivation creates action. In the next chapter, we'll explore exactly how elite performers think differently, the internal wiring that makes discipline feel natural instead of forced. Because once you understand the mindset, the behaviors become inevitable. But first, ask yourself, what have you been waiting to feel motivated to do? And what would happen if you just started doing it today, regardless of how you feel? That's the beginning of beast mode discipline. Chapter 2: The Mindset of a Beast Mode Performer. If you dissected the brain of a high performer and compared it to an average person's, you wouldn't find any structural differences. No extra neurons devoted to discipline. No willpower gland that's twice the size. The hardware is the same. What's different is the software, the operating system running on that hardware. The beliefs, interpretations, and mental models that shape how they see the world and their place in it. Let's reverse engineer that operating system. Understanding the internal wiring of elite achievers. High performers think differently in 3 critical ways that most people never recognize. 1. They've divorced their self-worth from their feelings. Most people operate on what psychologists call emotional reasoning, the belief that if something feels true, it must be true. If they feel incompetent, they believe they are incompetent. If they feel unmotivated, they believe the task isn't worth doing. Elite performers have severed this connection. They understand what Lisa Feldman Barrett's research on emotional neuroscience reveals. Emotions are constructions, not truths. They're your brain's best guess about what's happening and what you should do, but they're not infallible. When a high performer feels anxious before a presentation, they don't interpret it as, "I'm not ready," or "I'm going to fail." They interpret it as, "My body is preparing me for something important." Same sensation, completely different meaning, totally different action. 2. They use implementation intentions instead of outcome goals. Research by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer shows that people who use if-then planning, implementation intentions, are 2 to 3 times more likely to achieve their goals than those who just set outcome goals. Average thinking: I want to get in shape. High performer thinking: if it's 6 a.m. on a weekday, then I'm at the gym. If I'm traveling, then I'm doing a 20-minute hotel room workout. Notice the difference? High performers don't rely on daily decision-making. They've pre-decided. Their behavior is conditional and automatic. This is why they can maintain discipline even when life gets chaotic. They're not making decisions in the moment. They're executing pre-installed programs. 3. They operate from identity, not outcomes. James Clear's concept of identity-based habits is fundamental here. High performers don't say, "I want to run a marathon." They say, "I'm a runner." The first is a goal. The second is an identity. and identity is the most powerful driver of consistent behavior. Why? Because of a psychological phenomenon called cognitive consistency. Your brain is wired to act in ways that are consistent with how you see yourself. When you identify as a disciplined person, behaviors that contradict that identity create psychological discomfort. So you naturally gravitate toward actions that reinforce who you believe you are. How grit, growth mindset, and purpose fuel unstoppable performance. Let's unpack the 3 psychological pillars that turn ordinary people into high performers. Grit, the power of sustained passion and perseverance. Angela Duckworth's research at the University of Pennsylvania revealed something that challenged conventional wisdom. Talent and IQ were surprisingly poor predictors of success. What mattered more was grit, the combination of passion and perseverance toward long-term goals. But here's what most people miss about grit. It's not about suffering or grinding mindlessly. Duckworth found that gritty people share a common trait. They've connected their daily actions to a larger purpose. They're not just showing up, they're showing up for something that matters deeply to them. The mechanism is neurological. When you connect daily disciplines to meaningful purpose, you activate what neuroscientists call the meaning-making network in your brain regions, including the medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cingulate. This network doesn't just make you feel good, it actually reduces the perceived effort of difficult tasks. Purpose doesn't just motivate you emotionally, it literally makes hard things feel less hard. Growth mindset, seeing ability as developable, not fixed. Carol Dweck's decades of research on mindset revealed a fundamental split in how people view their abilities. Fixed mindset. I'm either good at something or I'm not. Failure reveals my limitations. Growth mindset. I can develop any ability through practice and learning. Failure reveals what I need to work on. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a different interpretation system that changes everything. Brain imaging studies show that when people with growth mindsets make mistakes, they show increased neural activity in regions associated with attention and error correction. People with fixed mindsets show increased activity in regions associated with threat detection. Same mistake. Different brain response. Different outcome. High performers have internalized their growth mindset so deeply that they literally seek out failure as information. They're not trying to avoid looking bad. They're trying to find their edges so they can push past them. This is why elite athletes study film of their worst performances more than their best ones. They're mining for growth opportunities. Purpose, the North Star that guides through storms. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that humans can endure almost any hardship if they have a strong enough why. His observations from the concentration camps revealed that those who maintained a sense of purpose, a reason to survive, were significantly more likely to make it through. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Research from the University of Michigan shows that people with a strong sense of purpose show lower cortisol reactivity, less stress, and better cardiovascular health. Purpose acts as a psychological immune system. But here's the key: purpose isn't some mystical thing you find. It's something you construct through reflection and commitment. High performers regularly engage in what psychologists call autobiographical reasoning. They create narrative meaning from their experiences, connecting their past, present, and future into a coherent story. They ask themselves, what problems do I want to solve? What impact do I want to have? What would make the struggle worthwhile? And then they design their disciplines around those answers. Reframing discomfort as a sign of progress, not failure. This might be the most important mindset shift in this entire book. Most people have been conditioned to interpret discomfort as a warning sign. Something's wrong, back off, retreat to comfort. This made sense for our ancestors. If something feels bad, it might kill you. But in the modern world, this interpretation is catastrophically wrong. The most important growth, physical, mental, professional, happens exclusively in the discomfort zone. High performers have completely reframed their relationship with discomfort. Discomfort is information, not a stop sign. When average performers feel strained, they think, "This is too hard. I should stop." When high performers feel strained, they think, "This is the edge of my current capacity. This is where growth happens. Research from Stanford's psychology department shows that people who view stress as enhancing, rather than debilitating, show improved performance and reduced negative health impacts. Same stress. Different interpretations. Different biology. Adaptation requires stress. This is fundamental to every biological system. Muscles don't grow when you're comfortable. They grow when you stress them beyond their current capacity, forcing adaptation. Your cardiovascular system doesn't improve from easy walks. It improves from pushing your heart rate into uncomfortable zones. Your mental resilience works the same way. Psychologists call this stress inoculation. Exposure to manageable stress actually builds resilience to future stress. But you have to reframe the discomfort as productive, not destructive. The discomfort filter. Here's a practical tool high performers use. They've developed what I call a discomfort filter, a quick diagnostic to determine whether discomfort is meaningful or harmful. Meaningful discomfort. Feels hard but not injurious. Connects to your goals and values. Decreases with familiarity and skill. Comes with a sense of capability. This is hard, but I can handle it. Harmful discomfort. Feels like damage or injury. Disconnected from what matters to you. Doesn't improve with practice. Comes with a sense of overwhelm. This is beyond my capacity. High performers lean into the first and back off from the second. This isn't about being tough, it's about being smart. The progress reframe. Elite athletes have a saying, no pain, no gain. But the more accurate version is, appropriate pain equals appropriate gain. When you're learning something new, confusion is progress. When you're building strength, muscle fatigue is progress. When you're developing discipline, the urge to quit, and not quitting, is progress. High performers have trained themselves to recognize these sensations not as problems to eliminate, but as signals that they're in the right zone, the zone where actual adaptation happens. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman calls this growth mindset stress enhancement. When you reframe stress and discomfort as catalysts for growth, your HPA axis, stress response system, responds differently. You get the performance benefits of arousal without the negative health impacts of chronic stress. The mindset of a beast mode performer isn't complicated, but it is different. It requires intentionally installing new mental software, new interpretations, new beliefs, new automatic responses. The good news? My mindset isn't fixed. It's trainable. Every time you choose to interpret discomfort as progress, you're rewiring your brain. Every time you act from identity instead of motivation, you're strengthening new neural pathways. In the next chapter, we'll get tactical about building discipline systematically, starting small, staying consistent, and growing mental strength progressively. Because once you have the right mindset, the right methods become incredibly powerful. But for now, examine your current operating system. When you face difficulty, what's your default interpretation? When you feel resistance, what story do you tell yourself? And most importantly, is that story serving you or sabotaging you? Because changing your outcome starts with changing your interpretations. Chapter 3: Building Discipline Like a Muscle. If I told you that you could deadlift 500 pounds tomorrow, you'd laugh at me. You know that strength doesn't work that way. You start with lighter weights, progressively overload, allow for recovery, and gradually over months and years, build serious strength. Yet when it comes to discipline, people try to go from 0 to 500-pound deadlifts overnight. They wake up on Monday planning to meditate for an hour, work out twice a day, eat perfectly, journal, read, and completely transform their life. By Wednesday, they've quit everything and concluded they just don't have discipline. That's not a discipline problem. That's a programming problem. Discipline isn't inherited, it's trained. Let's clear up the biggest myth about discipline, that some people are born with it and others aren't. This is demonstrably false, and believing it is probably the single biggest obstacle to developing it. The truth, supported by decades of behavioral science, is that discipline is a skill. And like all skills, it follows predictable patterns of development. Stanford psychologist B.J. Fogg, who studied behavior change for over 20 years, puts it simply. People don't change because they lack willpower. They fail because they're using the wrong strategy. Here's what we know from the science. Self-control is trainable. Research from Wilhelm Hoffmann at the University of Cologne tracked people's self-control capacity over time. What they found was striking. People who regularly practiced small acts of self-control, even completely unrelated to their main goals, showed improved self-control in other areas of their life. In one study, participants who practiced sitting up straight for 2 weeks showed improved performance on unrelated self-control tasks. Another study found that regular exercise improved self-control in financial decision-making. The mechanism? Each act of self-control strengthens the underlying neural circuitry, making future acts of self-control easier. Think of it like building a strength foundation. Someone who builds overall strength through compound movements doesn't just get stronger at those specific movements, they develop strength that transfers to everything. Discipline works the same way. The depletion myth has been debunked. For years, psychologists believed in ego depletion, the idea that willpower was a finite resource that got used up throughout the day. Recent research has completely upended this. Carol Dweck's studies showed that ego depletion only occurs in people who believe willpower is limited. People who believe willpower is abundant don't show depletion effects. Even more interesting, when researchers manipulated people's beliefs about willpower, their actual willpower changed accordingly. What does this mean practically? Discipline isn't a tank that empties. It's more like a muscle that can be trained to work harder, longer, and more efficiently. How to start small, stay consistent, and grow mental strength over time. Here's the systematic approach to building discipline that actually works. The Minimum Viable Discipline, MVD. This is inspired by B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits research. The idea is stupidly simple. Make the behavior so small that you can't say no. Want to build a meditation practice? Start with 1 breath. Not 5 minutes. 1 conscious breath. Want to start exercising? Do 1 push-up. Not a full workout. 1 push-up. Want to start writing? Write 1 sentence. Not 1,000 words. 1 sentence. This sounds ridiculous, but it works for 2 reasons. First, it eliminates the activation energy problem. Starting is the hardest part. Once you've done 1 push-up, doing 10 more is easy. Once you've written 1 sentence, writing a paragraph is natural. You're hacking the starting problem. Second, it builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to execute. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, no matter how small, you're building trust with yourself. That trust is the foundation of discipline. The 2-day rule. This comes from productivity expert Matt Davella, but it's backed by habit formation research. Never skip twice in a row. Life happens. You'll miss days. That's fine. But the difference between someone who maintains a practice and someone who abandons it is what happens after the first miss. 1 miss is an exception. 2 consecutive misses is the beginning of a new pattern. Research on habit formation shows that consistency matters more than intensity. A study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that habits take an average of 66 days to form. But the key variable wasn't perfection, it was not breaking the chain for more than 1 day. This gives you flexibility without sacrificing momentum. You can miss Monday's workout guilt-free, as long as you don't miss Tuesday. That 1 rule prevents the death spiral that kills most discipline attempts. Progressive overload. This is borrowed directly from strength training, but it's the key to building mental strength. You don't stick with 1 push-up forever. Once that becomes easy, and it will, you progress. Week 1, 1 push-up daily. Week 2, 5 push-ups daily. Week 3, 10 push-ups daily. Week 4, 10 push-ups plus 5-minute walk. The progression should feel challenging but achievable, about 10% harder than what you're currently doing. This is what exercise scientists call the minimal effective dose. Just enough stress to trigger adaptation without causing breakdown. Charles Duhigg's research on habit formation shows that small wins create momentum that fuels bigger wins. Each progression reinforces your identity as a disciplined person, making the next progression more psychologically accessible. The science behind habit formation and self-control. Let's get into neuroscience, because understanding how this actually works makes it easier to implement. The habit loop: cue, routine, reward. MIT neuroscientists discovered that habits are encoded in a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, specifically in the striatum. When you repeat a behavior in response to a consistent cue, your brain starts chunking that sequence together. Eventually, the behavior becomes automatic. It requires minimal conscious thought or willpower. This is why you can drive home on autopilot while having a conversation. Your basal ganglia has encoded the entire driving sequence as one chunk. The habit loop works like this. Cue, a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode, time of day, location, emotional state, preceding action. Routine, the behavior itself, the thing you want to automate. Reward, the benefit your brain receives, which reinforces the loop. Here's the critical insight. Willpower is only needed before the habit forms. Once the loop is encoded, behavior becomes automatic. You're not using self-control to brush your teeth every morning. You're just executing a program your basal ganglia installed years ago. This is why starting small is so important. You're not just practicing the behavior, you're installing the neural program that will eventually make that behavior automatic. Implementation intentions: pre-deciding to eliminate willpower. Peter Gallwitzer's research on implementation intentions has shown remarkable results. People who use if-then planning are significantly more likely to follow through on their intentions. The format is simple. If situation, then I will action. Examples: if it's 6 a.m. on a weekday, then I will put on my workout clothes. If I sit down at my desk, then I will write for 30 minutes before checking email. If I feel the urge to scroll social media, then I will take 3 deep breaths first. Why does this work? Because you're moving the decision-making from the moment of action, when willpower is required, to a calm planning session, when willpower isn't under stress. You're programming your behavior in advance. Brain imaging studies show that implementation intentions activate different neural pathways than regular goal intentions. They create stronger links between situational cues and responses, essentially pre-installing automatic behaviors. The compound effect of consistency. Here's where it gets exciting. James Clear uses a mathematical example in Atomic Habits. If you improve by just 1% every day for a year, you end up 37 times better. If you decline by 1% every day, you decline nearly down to 0. This isn't just a motivational metaphor, it's how skill development actually works. Neuroscientists call it consolidation. Every time you practice a behavior, you strengthen specific neural pathways through a process called myelination. Myelin is a substance that wraps around neural connections, making signals fire faster and more efficiently. The more you practice, the more myelin builds up, the more automatic and effortless the behavior becomes. This is why professional musicians can play incredibly complex pieces without conscious thought. Years of consistent practice have built such thick myelin sheaths around those neural pathways that execution is nearly automatic. But here's the thing, myelin only builds with consistent activation. One massive practice session doesn't do it. Daily, consistent practice does. The prefrontal cortex, your discipline muscle. Self-control happens primarily in your prefrontal cortex, PFC, the region behind your forehead responsible for executive function, decision-making, and impulse control. Research from the University of Pennsylvania shows that the PFC literally functions like a muscle. It can be strengthened with training, and it can be fatigued with overuse. Activities that strengthen your PFC. Meditation and mindfulness practice. Aerobic exercise. Learning new skills. Practicing delayed gratification. Managing attention, resisting distractions. The fascinating part? These effects transfer. When you build PFC strength through meditation, you don't just get better at meditation, you get better at all forms of self-control. This is why seemingly unrelated discipline practices, like making your bed every morning, can improve your ability to stick with completely different goals. Building discipline like a muscle isn't a metaphor, it's a literal description of what's happening in your brain. You're strengthening neural pathways, building myelin, training your prefrontal cortex, and encoding automatic behaviors in your basal ganglia. The process is systematic. Start with ridiculously small behaviors. Attach them to consistent cues. Never miss twice in a row. Progress gradually. Trust the compound effect. This isn't sexy. It doesn't make for good social media content. But it works. Because it's aligned with how your brain actually builds capacity. In the next chapter, we'll explore why even perfect discipline fails in the wrong environment, and how to design your surroundings to make discipline the default, not the exception. But first, decide on your minimum viable discipline. What's one behavior so small you can start it today? Not tomorrow. Today. Because discipline isn't built in grand declarations. It's built in small, consistent actions that compound over time. Start today. Start small. Stay consistent. Chapter 4: Mastering Your Environment. You've probably heard the statistics. Humans make about 35,000 decisions per day. Every single one of those decisions depletes your mental energy just a little bit. And here's the brutal truth: if your environment requires constant willpower to make the right choices, you're going to lose. Not because you're weak. Not because you lack discipline. But because you're fighting physics. Why willpower alone isn't enough. Let's talk about what behavioral scientists have known for decades, but most people still haven't internalized. Your environment shapes your behavior far more powerfully than your intentions do. In a groundbreaking study, Brian Wansink et Cornell showed that simply changing the size of people's plates and bowls led them to eat 20 to 30% more food without any awareness that they were eating more. The environment dictated the behavior, completely bypassing conscious decision-making. Another study: when researchers placed vegetables at eye level in a school cafeteria while moving cookies to lower shelves, vegetable consumption increased by 103% with no other intervention. Same kids, same choices available, different environment, totally different behavior. The mechanism is simple. Your brain is an energy conservation machine. It's constantly looking for ways to reduce cognitive load. When healthy choices require effortful decision-making and unhealthy choices are easy and automatic, your brain will trend toward the easy path, especially when you're tired, stressed, or distracted, which is most of the time. This is why relying solely on willpower is like trying to swim upstream constantly. It can be done, but it's exhausting and unsustainable. Stanford behavior scientist B.J. Fogg's research reveals that behavior happens when three elements converge: motivation, ability, and prompt. But here's the key insight: ability, how easy the behavior is, matters more than motivation. Make something easy enough, and you'll do it even with low motivation. Make something hard enough, and you won't do it even with high motivation. Your environment controls ability. It determines how easy or hard each behavior is. Master your environment, and you've essentially automated good behavior while making bad behavior harder. Designing your surroundings to support discipline, not sabotage it. Environment design isn't about willpower, it's about architecture. You're building a physical and digital space where the right choices are obvious, easy, and often the default. The proximity principle. This is dead simple but wildly effective. Put good choices close and bad choices far away. Want to read more? Put books next to your bed and couch. Want to read less social media? Put your phone in another room while you work. In one study, office workers who had candy visible on their desk ate an average of 9 pieces per day. When the candy was moved to a desk drawer, same room, just out of sight, consumption dropped to 6 pieces. When moved to another room entirely, it dropped to 3 pieces. The same behavior, eating candy, had completely different frequencies based purely on proximity. No willpower involved. Just physics. Apply this ruthlessly. Gym clothes laid out the night before, proximity to your morning routine. Healthy snacks at eye level, junk food in hard-to-reach places, or not in the house. Work materials visible and accessible, distractions hidden or removed. Phone charger in another room at night forces physical distance from late-night scrolling. Friction engineering. This is about intentionally adding friction to bad behaviors and removing friction from good ones. James Clear calls this choice architecture. Every behavior has a friction cost, the effort required to do it. Your job is to manipulate those costs. Adding friction to bad behaviors. Delete social media apps from your phone, requires re-downloading to use. Use website blockers that require a 15-character password to disable. Keep junk food in opaque containers in hard-to-reach places. Log out of entertainment accounts after each use. Removing friction from good behaviors. Meal prep on Sundays so healthy eating is grab and go. Keep a water bottle on your desk, hydration becomes automatic. Set out workout clothes the night before. Have a pre-written daily schedule, no decision fatigue about what to do next. Research from Duke University shows that about 45% of our daily behaviors are habitual, not consciously decided. By engineering friction, you're essentially programming which behaviors become habitual. The context cue strategy. Your brain loves associating contexts with behaviors. This is why you might feel creative in coffee shops but lethargic at home. The context sends signals that trigger specific mental states. Use this deliberately. Designate specific spaces for specific activities. Work desk equals deep work. Couch equals relaxation. Never work in bed. Preserve bed equals sleep association. Create a focus zone with specific lighting, music, or environmental cues. Use different devices for different purposes. Reading tablet versus work laptop. A Columbia University study found that people who consistently worked in the same physical location were 2x more likely to enter flow states, compared to those who moved around. The context itself became a trigger for focused work. Digital environment design. Your digital environment is now more influential than your physical one for most knowledge workers. Yet most people treat it like a landfill. Audit and optimize. Phone. Delete all social media apps, use desktop only, with intention. Remove email from your phone or turn off all notifications. Use grayscale mode to reduce dopamine triggers from colorful app icons. Implement focus mode schedules that auto-block distracting apps during work hours. Computer. Use separate browser profiles for work and personal, or separate accounts. Install extensions that block infinite scroll, like News Feed Eradicator. Set up distraction blocking software. Organize desktop and files so important work is most visible. Notifications. Default to all notifications off, then selectively enable only critical ones. Use Do Not Disturb as your default mode, not your exception. Cal Newport's research on digital minimalism shows that the average knowledge worker loses 23 minutes of productivity for every notification-induced distraction. It's not just the interruption, it's the cognitive switching cost and the time to return to deep focus. Removing temptation, optimizing space, and creating execution-friendly zones. Let's get specific about creating environments that make discipline inevitable. The kitchen, command center for health. Your kitchen determines about 70% of your nutrition outcomes. Get this right, and you've automated health. The healthy kitchen redesign. Clear counter space equals prep space. Clutter kills cooking motivation. Visible fruit bowl at eye level. Pre-cut vegetables in transparent containers at the front of the fridge. Meal prep containers ready to go. Junk food either eliminated or in opaque containers in the back of high shelves. Water pitcher always full and visible. Research from the Cornell Food Lab found that people eat the first thing they see 70% of the time. If healthy food is what you see, healthy food is what you'll eat. The workspace, fortress of focus. Your workspace should be optimized for one thing, executing your most important work with minimal resistance. The focus workspace. Single-purpose space, if possible, work nowhere else. Everything you need within arm's reach. Nothing you don't need visible. Quality lighting, preferably natural light or full spectrum. Temperature control. Research shows 70 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit is optimal for cognitive performance. Zero visual clutter. Every visible item is either functional or meaningfully inspirational. Phone in another room or in a drawer. Noise-canceling headphones ready. Glass of water always present. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's research shows that visual clutter increases cortisol, stress, and reduces cognitive capacity. Your peripheral vision constantly processes visual information. The more cluttered your environment, the more cognitive load you're carrying unconsciously. The bedroom, sleep sanctuary. Sleep is the foundation of discipline. We'll cover this more in Chapter 6, but your bedroom environment is critical. The sleep-optimized bedroom. Cool temperature, 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit ideal. Complete darkness, blackout curtains or sleep mask. No TV, no laptop, no work materials visible. Phone charging in another room, use an old-school alarm clock. Comfortable, clean bedding. Minimal visual stimulation. Optional, white noise machine or fan. Matthew Walker's sleep research at UC Berkeley shows that bedroom environment accounts for massive variance in sleep quality. Poor sleep destroys discipline the next day. Optimize this environment, and you're stacking the discipline deck in your favor. The social environment, surrounding yourself with standards. This deserves special attention because it's the most underestimated environmental factor. Jim Rohn's famous quote, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This isn't just folk wisdom, it's supported by decades of social psychology research. Nicholas Christakis' work at Yale demonstrated that behaviors spread through social networks like contagions. If your friend becomes obese, your likelihood of becoming obese increases by 57%. If your friend quits smoking, your likelihood of quitting increases dramatically. The mechanism is social proof and normalized standards. When everyone around you operates at a high level, that becomes your baseline. When everyone around you is mediocre, that becomes normal. Optimizing your social environment. Audit. Who energizes you versus drains you? Who raises your standards versus lowers them? Increase exposure to high performers, join communities, find mentors, follow exemplars. Reduce exposure to energy vampires and mediocrity enablers. Create accountability partnerships with people who match or exceed your ambitions. Join groups where your desired behavior is the norm. Running clubs, entrepreneur groups, study groups. This doesn't mean being ruthless or abandoning people. It means being intentional about who influences your standards and behaviors. The implementation, the 30-day environment reset. Here's how to actually do this. Week 1 Audit. Document every environment you spend significant time in. Note what behaviors each environment encourages or discourages. Identify the biggest environmental saboteurs. Week 2 Physical redesign. Implement the proximity principle in your home. Redesign your workspace for focus. Optimize your kitchen for health. Transform your bedroom into a sleep sanctuary. Week 3 Digital redesign. Delete/remove all non-essential apps. Set up blocking software. Restructure notifications. Create separate digital spaces for different activities. Week 4 Social redesign. Identify and increase time with high-performance relationships. Join one community where excellence is normal. Set boundaries with energy-draining relationships. Find or create accountability structures. The environment design chapter is often skipped because it seems less important than mindset or habits. But here's the truth: the environment is the force multiplier. The right environment makes discipline feel effortless. The wrong environment makes discipline feel impossible. You're not trying to be strong enough to resist temptation constantly. You're trying to be smart enough to not encounter it. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to structure your day through routines and rituals, the operating procedures that turn intentions into automated excellence. But right now, look around you. What is your current environment programming you to do? And what would need to change to make discipline the path of least resistance? Because willpower is a terrible long-term strategy. Environment design is how you win. Chapter 5: The Power of Routines and Rituals. Here's something that might surprise you. Most elite performers aren't making dozens of strategic decisions throughout their day. They're not constantly choosing discipline over laziness. They're not heroically resisting temptation. They're just following their routines. The secret weapon of high performance isn't willpower, it's systematization. Once you've installed the right routines, discipline becomes the default. You're not deciding whether to do the work, you're just executing the program. How top performers structure their day for peak output. Let's look at the data before we get into the how-to, because understanding why routines work makes you more likely to implement them. Research from Duke University found that about 40 to 45% of our daily behaviors aren't actual decisions. They're habits triggered by contextual cues. When you have a solid routine, that percentage goes even higher for your most important activities. Here's why this matters. Every decision you make depletes glucose in your prefrontal cortex. By midday, if you've been making constant decisions, your self-control capacity is significantly reduced. This is why you're more likely to eat junk food at night than in the morning, even with identical willpower. But routines bypass the decision-making process entirely. You're not choosing to execute, you're just doing what you do at this time, in this place. Zero decision fatigue. Zero willpower depletion. The psychology of routines. Wendy Wood, a psychologist at USC who's studied habits for over 30 years, found that consistent context, same time, same place, same cues, is the most powerful predictor of behavior automation. When you do something at the same time, in the same order, in the same context, your brain starts chunking that entire sequence as one behavior. Eventually, starting the routine automatically triggers the entire sequence. You don't think about it, you just flow through it. Think about your current morning routine. You probably wake up, go to the bathroom, maybe make coffee, check your phone. You do this without thinking about it. That's the power you want to harness for your most important behaviors. Energy architecture. Top performers don't just have routines, they have energy-intelligent routines. They've structured their day around their natural energy rhythms, not arbitrary time slots. Daniel Pink's research in When shows that most people follow a predictable energy pattern: peak in the morning, trough in the afternoon, recovery in the evening. But about 20% of people are different. Night owls have a reverse pattern. High performers figure out their pattern and schedule their most demanding work during their peak energy windows. Routines ensure that peak time is protected and used for deep work, not email and meetings. Morning, midday, and evening routines that reinforce discipline. Let's build the specific routines that separate high performers from everyone else. The morning routine, setting the trajectory. Your morning routine is your highest leverage behavior of the day. It sets your mental and physical state for everything that follows. Research from the University of Nottingham found that people who had consistent morning routines reported higher levels of well-being, lower stress, and better productivity throughout the day. The routine itself creates psychological momentum. The high-performance morning routine, 60 to 90 minutes. Phase 1, wake without decision, 5 to 10 minutes. Same wake time every day, including weekends. No phone for the first hour, non-negotiable. Hydrate immediately, 16 to 32 ounce water. Natural light exposure, go outside or sit by a window. Why this works: consistent wake times regulate your circadian rhythm. Andrew Huberman's research shows that early morning light exposure advances your cortisol pulse, helping you wake up naturally and sleep better that night. Starting without your phone prevents reactive mode. You stay in control of your attention. Phase 2, prime your body, 20 to 30 minutes. Movement, anything, yoga, walk, workout, stretching. Cold exposure optional, cold shower or face splash. Proper breakfast, protein-rich, not sugar-driven. Why this works: morning exercise increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which improves cognitive function and mood for hours. Cold exposure activates your sympathetic nervous system, increasing alertness and dopamine. Phase 3, prime your mind, 20 to 30 minutes. Meditation or breath work, even 5 minutes. Journaling or planning, clarify your day's priorities. Reading or learning, fill your mind with quality input. Why this works: meditation increases activity in your prefrontal cortex, the discipline center. Journaling creates clarity, and reduces anxiety. Reading sets a learning-oriented frame for your day. Phase 4. Execute Priority 1, 30 to 90 minutes. Your most important work, before anything else. Deep focus, no distractions. Protect this time ruthlessly. Why this works? You're using your peak energy and full willpower reserves on what matters most. Even if the rest of your day goes sideways, you've won the day. The key is consistency. Same order, same time, same place. Your brain learns. This is what we do in the morning. Eventually, you won't need discipline to do it, you'll just do it automatically. The midday routine, the reset. The afternoon energy crash is real. Research shows cognitive performance drops significantly between 2 to 4 p.m. for most people. Instead of fighting it, high performers work with it. The midday reset, 30 to 45 minutes. Movement and food. Light walk, 10 to 15 minutes, preferably outside. Strategic lunch, protein plus vegetables. Light on carbs to avoid insulin crash. Avoid decision-making about food, meal prep eliminates this. Mental reset. Short meditation or breathing exercise, even 5 minutes. Review afternoon priorities. Reset your workspace, clear clutter, fresh water. Why this works? Movement counteracts the post-lunch dip. Natural light re-regulates your circadian rhythm. The mental reset prevents afternoon drift. You intentionally start the afternoon instead of sliding into it unconsciously. Some high performers use this time for administrative tasks or shallow work, saving their second focus block for later when energy recovers. The evening routine, recovery and preparation. Your evening routine is about 2 things: recovering from today and setting up tomorrow. The evening wind down, 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Work shutdown, 15 to 20 minutes. Complete a shutdown ritual, Cal Newport's concept. Review what you accomplished. Plan tomorrow's top priorities. Close all open loops or capture them. Literally say, shutdown complete. Why this works? Without a shutdown ritual, work stress bleeds into your evening and disrupts sleep. The ritual creates psychological closure, telling your brain, work mode is over. Preparation mode, 15 to 20 minutes. Lay out tomorrow's clothes and workout gear. Prep breakfast or lunch. Clean your workspace. Prepare anything needed for tomorrow's morning routine. Why this works? You're removing friction from tomorrow morning. When you wake up, you don't have to make decisions, you just execute. This is friction engineering applied to time. Wind down mode, 30 to 45 minutes. No screens, blue light disrupts melatonin. Dimmer lighting. Reading, stretching, conversation, relaxation. Optional, gratitude practice or reflection. Same bedtime every night. Why this works? Your brain needs a consistent wind-down signal. Matthew Walker's research shows that consistent sleep-wake times are more important than sleep duration for cognitive performance and health. Turning intention into automatic behavior through ritual. The difference between a routine and a ritual is emotional weight and consistency. A routine is what you do. A ritual is who you are. The ritual mindset. When Kobe Bryant arrived at the gym, he had a specific pre-practice ritual. Same stretching sequence, same ball handling drills, same mental focus exercise. Every single time. It wasn't just preparation, it was identity reinforcement. This is what I do. This is who I am. That's the power of ritual. It transforms ordinary behaviors into identity-defining acts. Creating your personal rituals. The most powerful rituals have these elements. Consistency, same time, same place, same sequence. Your brain loves predictability. Meaning, connect the behavior to your larger purpose. You're not just exercising, you're honoring your body and building the energy required for your mission. Sensory cues. Include specific sensory elements that trigger the right state. Maybe it's particular music, a specific coffee, certain lighting, or a physical object. Emotional weight, treat it as sacred, not optional. This isn't. If I have time. This is non-negotiable. The Keystone Ritual. James Clear talks about keystone habits, behaviors that trigger other positive behaviors. Apply this to rituals. Your morning routine might be your keystone ritual. When you execute it, you feel like a disciplined person, which makes you more likely to make disciplined choices throughout the day. Or maybe your workout is your keystone ritual. When you train, you feel strong and capable, which influences how you show up in meetings, conversations, and challenges. Identify your keystone ritual and protect it with your life. Everything else becomes easier when that one ritual is solid. The power of accumulation. Here's what happens over time with consistent routines and rituals. Week 1 requires conscious effort, feels effortful, easy to skip. Week 2 to 3 still requires intention, but feels more natural. Week 4 to 8 becomes automatic, requires less willpower. Week 12 plus feels wrong not to do it, becomes part of your identity. This is the compound effect applied to behavior. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathway. Eventually, the behavior becomes so deeply encoded that not doing it creates psychological discomfort. Routine flexibility versus routine case. One warning: routines should be flexible systems, not rigid prisons. Life happens. Travel disrupts routines. Illness changes plans. Kids wake up sick. Emergencies occur. High performers have routine flexibility built in. A full routine for normal days. A minimum viable routine for disrupted days. Permission to adapt without abandoning. The key is having a floor, not just a ceiling. Your floor might be: no matter what, I do 10 minutes of movement and 5 minutes of planning. That maintains the routine identity even when the full routine isn't possible. Routines and rituals are how you systematize excellence. They're how you take the mental work out of discipline and make it automatic. You're not trying to be motivated enough to do the right thing every time. You're installing programs that run automatically, regardless of motivation. In the next chapter, we'll explore the physiological foundation beneath all of this. Because discipline without energy is just burnout waiting to happen. You can have perfect routines, but if you're running on empty, they won't work. But for now, design your routines. Morning, midday, evening. Start simple, be consistent, let them evolve. Because the person with strong routines isn't more disciplined than you, they've just automated what you're still deciding. Make discipline automatic. That's how you win. Chapter 6. Managing energy, not just time. You've probably read dozens of articles about time management. Block scheduling, time batching, the Pomodoro technique, eating the frog, all useful tools. But they all miss the fundamental point. Time is not your limiting resource. Energy is. You can have 8 hours blocked for deep work, but if you're running on 4 hours of sleep, 3 cups of coffee, and a blood sugar roller coaster, those 8 hours will produce mediocre output at best. Discipline requires fuel. And most people are trying to run a Ferrari on dollar store gas. Discipline fades when energy crashes. Let's start with what the research tells us. Roy Baumeister's famous studies on ego depletion, before the concept was refined, showed something critical. Self-control tasks performed worse after previous self-control exertion. The mechanism wasn't about some mystical willpower reserve. It was about glucose depletion in the prefrontal cortex. More recent research has nuanced this. It's not just glucose, it's your overall physiological state. When you're tired, hungry, dehydrated, or stressed, your prefrontal cortex, the discipline center, literally functions less effectively. Brain imaging studies show reduced activity in regions responsible for self-control when participants are sleep-deprived or mentally fatigued. Translation: discipline isn't just mental. It's biological. Your brain is an organ that runs on specific fuel. Deprive it of that fuel, and no amount of motivation or mindset will save you. Think about the last time you tried to maintain discipline on terrible sleep. How'd that go? Probably not well. Because when you're exhausted, your prefrontal cortex is offline and your amygdala, the emotional, impulsive center, takes over. You're literally not operating with your full brain. How sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery fuel sustained performance. Let's break down the 4 pillars of energy management that make discipline possible. Sleep. the non-negotiable foundation. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and sleep researcher at UC Berkeley, puts it bluntly. The shorter your sleep, the shorter your life. But beyond longevity, sleep is the foundation of every aspect of high performance. Here's what happens when you're sleep deprived. Cognitive performance. After 16 hours of wakefulness, your cognitive performance is equivalent to having a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. After 24 hours, it's equivalent to 0.1%, legally drunk in most places. You wouldn't try to drive drunk, but you'll try to do complex work sleep deprived? Willpower and self-control. Sleep deprivation reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex by up to 30%. This is why you make terrible decisions when tired. Your discipline center is literally impaired. Emotional regulation. The amygdala, emotion center, becomes 60% more reactive when you're sleep deprived. This is why everything feels harder, more frustrating, and more overwhelming when you're tired. Physical performance. Sleep is when your body repairs muscle tissue, consolidates motor learning, and restores energy systems. Athletes who sleep less than 8 hours show measurably worse performance. The high-performance sleep protocol. Consistency. Same bedtime and wake time, within 30 minutes, every day, including weekends. This regulates your circadian rhythm more than any other single factor. Duration. 7 to 9 hours for most adults. Not 6. Not, I'll catch up on weekends. Actual, consistent 7 to 9 hours. Environment, cool, 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, dark, blackout curtains or mask, quiet, white noise if needed, comfortable, invest in good bedding. Pre-sleep routine, no screens 1 hour before bed, blue light suppresses melatonin. Dim lights. Wind down activities. Same routine every night to signal your brain. Timing, no caffeine after 2 p.m., caffeine has a 6-hour half-life. No alcohol before bed, disrupts REM sleep. No large meals 3 hours before sleep. Walker's research shows that even one night of good sleep can restore cognitive function, but consistent sleep hygiene creates compounding benefits. After a week of proper sleep, people report feeling like different humans. Nutrition, fueling the machine. Your brain is 2% of your body weight but consumes 20% of your energy. It's an expensive organ to run. Feed it poorly, and performance suffers immediately. The problem is most people are on a blood sugar roller coaster. High-carb breakfast insulin spike, energy crash, reach for more carbs, repeat. This creates energy volatility, which makes discipline nearly impossible. One moment you feel great, the next you're irritable and foggy. You're not building sustainable performance, you're just managing crises. The high-performance nutrition approach. Stable blood sugar. This is the foundation. Prioritize protein and healthy fats, moderate complex carbs, minimize simple sugars and refined carbs. A breakfast of eggs and vegetables gives you steady energy for hours. A breakfast of cereal and juice gives you 90 minutes of energy followed by a crash. Hydration. Even 2% dehydration reduces cognitive performance. Most people are chronically underhydrated. Drink half your body weight in ounces daily. 150 pounds equals 75 ounces water. Strategic caffeine. Coffee isn't evil, it's a tool. But most people use it wrong. Andrew Huberman's protocol. Delay caffeine 90 to 120 minutes after waking. Lets your natural cortisol pulse happen. Limit to before 2 p.m. and cycle off occasionally to prevent tolerance. Meal timing. Eating too close to sleep disrupts sleep quality. Heavy lunches trigger afternoon crashes. Strategic timing matters. Many high performers do light lunches and slightly larger dinners, or they do their biggest meal mid-afternoon after their focus work. The elimination experiment. Everyone's biology is different. The most valuable thing you can do is track how different foods affect your energy and focus. Keep a simple log for 2 weeks. What you ate, and how you felt 1 to 2 hours later. Patterns will emerge. Movement, the universal performance enhancer. Exercise isn't just about fitness, it's about brain function. John Ratey's research at Harvard Medical School shows that exercise is the single most powerful tool for optimizing brain performance. Here's what regular movement does. Increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain. It promotes neuroplasticity, improves learning, enhances memory, and protects against cognitive decline. Reduces inflammation. Chronic inflammation impairs cognitive function. Exercise is one of the most effective anti-inflammatory interventions. Improves mood and reduces anxiety. Exercise is as effective as medication for mild to moderate depression and anxiety. The mechanism involves endorphins, but also serotonin and norepinephrine regulation. Enhances executive function. The prefrontal cortex, your discipline center, functions better in people who exercise regularly. It's not just correlation, it's causation. The movement protocol for high performance. Daily movement, something every single day. Even a 15-minute walk counts. Consistency matters more than intensity for cognitive benefits. Weekly structure. 3 to 4 days of moderate to high intensity, resistance training, HIIT, challenging cardio. 2 to 3 days of low intensity, walking, easy yoga, stretching. 1 to 2 days of complete rest or active recovery. Timing. Morning exercise sets up your day neurologically. Evening exercise can interfere with sleep for some people. Experiment and find what works for your biology. Integration. Movement isn't separate from your work, it enhances it. Walking meetings, stretch breaks every 90 minutes, quick movement bursts between focus blocks all work. The key is consistency over perfection. The person who does moderate exercise 6 days a week will outperform the person who does intense exercise twice a week. Recovery, the most underrated performance tool. High performers understand something most people miss. Recovery isn't laziness, it's strategic restoration. You don't build strength during the workout, you build it during recovery. The same applies to mental performance. Types of recovery. Micro-recovery, throughout the day. 5-minute breathing exercises between meetings. Short walks between focus blocks. Eye rest, close eyes or look distance, every 20 to 30 minutes of screen time. Stretching or movement breaks. Daily recovery. Evening wind-down routine. Quality sleep. Activities that restore you, reading, hobbies, socializing, nature. Weekly recovery. 1 full day of rest from intense work. Activities purely for enjoyment. Social connection. Nature exposure. Quarterly recovery. Extended breaks, 3 to 5 days, every 90 days. Unplug completely. Reset and recharge. Alex Sejong Kim Pang's research on rest shows that deliberate rest actually increases productivity and creativity. The most productive people aren't working more hours, they're recovering more strategically. Strategies to align work with natural energy rhythms. Here's where we put it all together. You have natural energy patterns throughout the day. Fighting them is exhausting. Working with them is powerful. The ultradian rhythm. Your body operates on roughly 90-minute cycles throughout the day, ultradian rhythms. During each cycle, you move from higher to lower alertness. Fighting this by trying to maintain constant high focus is counterproductive. The smart approach. 90 minutes of focused work. 15 to 20 minute break, movement, rest, different activity. Repeat. This matches your natural rhythm instead of fighting it. Cal Newport's research on deep work shows that most people can sustain 3 to 4 hours of genuine deep focus per day, usually in 90-minute blocks. Energy mapping. For 1 week, track your energy levels every hour. Rate yourself 1 to 10. Look for patterns. When is your peak energy? When do you crash? What activities affect your energy? How does sleep/food/movement impact the next day? Then redesign your schedule. Peak energy equals most important, cognitively demanding work. Moderate energy equals meetings, administrative tasks. Low energy equals routine tasks, planning, rest. The power of strategic breaks. Most people either power through exhaustion, inefficient, or break randomly, scattered. High performers break strategically. The Pomodoro Principle, not necessarily 25/5ths, but the concept of bounded focus followed by deliberate rest. Nature breaks, even 5 minutes outside restores attention. Research shows nature exposure reduces mental fatigue more effectively than indoor breaks. Social breaks, brief positive social interactions restore energy. A good conversation with a colleague beats scrolling Instagram. Movement breaks, walking, stretching, or brief exercise resets your nervous system. Saying no to energy vampires. Here's the hard part. You need to protect your energy ruthlessly. That means no to morning meetings that disrupt peak focus time. Commitments that don't align with your goals. People who consistently drain your energy. Activities that steal time without returning value. Yes to boundaries around your peak performance windows. People and activities that energize you. Recovery time guilt-free. Strategic delegation of energy-draining tasks. Warren Buffett has said that the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. This isn't about being selfish, it's about energy allocation. You can't give your best to what matters if you're depleted by what doesn't. Managing energy is the unsexy foundation of sustained high performance. You can have perfect mindset, optimal routines, and great environment design, but if you're running on empty, none of it works. Sleep, nutrition, movement, recovery, these aren't nice-to-haves, or things you do after you've achieved success. They're the prerequisites for success. In the next chapter, we'll tackle the biggest challenge to discipline, resistance. Because even with perfect energy management, you'll still face days when everything in you wants to quit. How you handle those moments determines everything. But first, audit your energy systems. Be honest. How's your sleep actually? What's your nutrition really like? When did you last move with intensity? Are you recovering, or just collapsing? Fix your energy foundation. Everything else gets easier. Chapter 7: Overcoming Resistance and Staying on Track. Let's talk about the thing nobody wants to admit. Even with perfect systems, optimal environment, and great energy management, there will still be days when you don't want to do the work. Days when the resistance is so strong it feels like gravity. Days when your disciplined identity feels like a costume you're wearing instead of who you actually are. This is where most people break. Because they interpret resistance as evidence that something is wrong. It's not. Resistance is just part of the game. Why we resist meaningful work hard and how to push past it. Stephen Pressfield, in The War of Art, personified resistance as an actual enemy. It's the force that emerges exactly in proportion to how important the work is. The more meaningful the task, the stronger the resistance. But why? Why would our brains resist exactly the things that matter most? The neuroscience of resistance. Your brain has two competing systems, the limbic system, primitive, emotional, seeking immediate reward, and the prefrontal cortex, rational, future-oriented, disciplined. The limbic system is older, faster, and incredibly powerful. It sees hard work as a threat. In our evolutionary past, expending unnecessary energy could mean death. The lizard brain is trying to conserve resources. The problem is, your limbic system can't distinguish between hard work that advances my goals and genuine danger. It just sees effort and says danger. Stop. Conserve energy. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex is saying, this is important. This aligns with our goals. We should do this. Resistance is this internal conflict playing out. It's not weakness. It's your ancient survival circuitry activating inappropriately in modern contexts. The psychological component. But there's more than neuroscience at play. Resistance often stems from deeper psychological factors. Fear of judgment. What if I try my best and still fail? What if people see me fail? Research from Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck shows that fear of judgment causes people to avoid challenges that would help them grow. The fixed mindset interprets effort as evidence of inadequacy. If I were really talented, this would be easy. Perfectionism. If I can't do it perfectly, why do it at all? This is procrastination in disguise. Research shows perfectionists actually perform worse and are less happy than high achievers who accept imperfection. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about protection from judgment. Overwhelm. This is too big. I don't know where to start. When tasks feel overwhelming, your brain's threat detection system activates. The work isn't actually threatening, but the feeling of overwhelm triggers the same neural pathways as actual threats. How to push past resistance. The 5-minute rule. Tell yourself you only have to do 5 minutes. That's it. Just 5 minutes, then you're free to stop. This works because starting is 80% of the battle. Once you're in motion, continuing is much easier than starting. Behavioral activation therapy, used successfully for depression, is based on this principle. Action precedes motivation. Most of the time, you'll continue past 5 minutes. But even if you don't, you've maintained the behavior pattern. The identity remains intact. I'm someone who shows up. The worst version strategy. Grant yourself permission to do the worst version of the work. Not no work, just bad work. Writing feels impossible? Write garbage. No one has to see it. Workout feels too hard? Do the easiest possible version. Work feels overwhelming? Do something, anything, related to it. This removes the perfection barrier. Often, the worst version ends up being better than you expected. And even when it's actually bad, you've kept the behavior chain alive. Name the resistance. Simply identifying resistance can reduce its power. Say out loud or write, I'm feeling resistance to task. That's normal. The resistance doesn't mean I shouldn't do it, it means it matters. Psychologist Dan Siegel calls this, name it to tame it. Labeling emotional states reduces their intensity by engaging your prefrontal cortex. You're bringing conscious awareness to an automatic process. Reframe the discomfort. Remember Chapter 2? Discomfort is information, not a stop sign. When you feel resistance, that's actually evidence you're at your growth edge. Elite performers have trained themselves to feel a weird excitement when resistance appears. It means, this is where I level up. You're not trying to eliminate resistance. You're trying to change your relationship with it. Dealing with distractions, procrastination, and low motivation days. Let's get tactical about the specific obstacles that derail discipline. Distractions, the modern epidemic. Gloria Mark's research at UC Irvine found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to full focus after an interruption. Most knowledge workers are interrupted every 11 minutes. Do the math. You're essentially never in deep focus. The distraction defense protocol. External distractions. Phone in another room or airplane mode during focus blocks. Closed door plus headphones. Physical and visual signals you're unavailable. Disable all notifications, except true emergencies. Use websites/app blockers during work hours. Batch all communication, check emails/messages at designated times. Internal distractions. Keep a capture sheet next to you. When random thoughts arise, write them down and return to focus. Use the Pomodoro technique to contain focus periods. Practice meditation to strengthen attention control. Notice when attention wanders, gently return. This is the practice. Cal Newport's research shows that the ability to focus is a skill that atrophies with disuse. Every time you indulge a distraction, you're training your brain to be distracted. Every time you return focus, you're training concentration. Procrastination, understanding the real enemy. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's emotion regulation gone wrong. Tim P. Weiss-H-Wales' research at Carleton University shows that procrastination is about avoiding negative feelings associated with a task, not the task itself. We're not avoiding the work, we're avoiding the anxiety, boredom, frustration, or uncertainty the work might generate. The Anti-Procrastination Toolkit. Identify the emotion. What feeling are you actually avoiding? Fear? Boredom? Overwhelm? Once you name it, you can address it. Break it down. Overwhelm dissolves when tasks become manageable. Instead of Write report. Try. Outline 3 main points. Implementation intentions. If it's 9 a.m. Monday, then I will work on specific task for 30 minutes. Predecision eliminates the opportunity to procrastinate. Temptation bundling. Pair unpleasant tasks with things you enjoy. Catherine Milkman's research at Wharton shows this significantly increases follow-through. Only let yourself listen to favorite podcasts while doing administrative work, for example. The 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Captures quick wins and prevents small tasks from becoming mental clutter. Low motivation days. The reality of consistency. Here's the truth. Motivation is like weather. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's storming, and you don't control it. High performers have a completely different relationship with motivation. They don't wait for it. They don't chase it. They just have systems that work regardless of motivation levels. The Low Motivation Day Protocol. Minimum viable version. Remember your floor from Chapter 5. This is when you use it. Can't do the full workout? Do 10 minutes. Can't write the full chapter? Write 1 paragraph. Maintain the behavior pattern even at reduced intensity. Phone a friend. Use your accountability partner. Text them. Low motivation today. Committing to minimum viable action. Social accountability activates different motivation systems. Stack small wins. Start with the easiest items on your list. Early wins create momentum. Momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. Remember your why. Connect today's action to your larger purpose. Not in a vague way, specifically. This email I don't want to write advances my project, which serves my mission to specific impact. Just show up. Sometimes the goal is just not breaking the chain. Woody Allen said, 80% of success is showing up. On low motivation days, showing up is the success. Practical tools for staying disciplined when it matters most. Let's compile the emergency toolkit. Practical interventions for when discipline is hardest. Tool 1, the countdown method. Mel Robbins. 5-second rule. When you need to do something, count backward 5-4-3-2-1 and physically move. The countdown interrupts the habit of hesitation and activates your prefrontal cortex. Don't give yourself time to negotiate. Count and move. Tool 2, the identity question. Ask, what would the person I'm becoming do right now? Not what you feel like doing. What would the disciplined version of you do? Then do that. This activates identity-based motivation, which research shows is more powerful than outcome-based motivation. Tool 3, the scoreboard. Visual tracking is incredibly powerful. Jerry Seinfeld's Don't Break the Chain calendar. A simple checkbox for daily disciplines. A graph of your metrics. Teresa Amabel's research on progress principles shows that visible progress is one of the strongest motivators for continued action. Even small wins, when made visible, fuel persistence. Tool 4, the accountability text. Before bed, text your accountability partner what you'll do tomorrow. In the morning, text when you've done it. Research on public commitment shows that stating your intentions to others increases follow-through by 65 to 95% depending on the study. Social pressure, the good kind, is a powerful tool. Tool 5, the future self-visualization. When resistance is strong, visualize your future self 6 months from now. 2 versions. Version A, you pushed through today and stayed consistent. Where are you? Version B, you gave in to resistance and quit. Where are you? Which person do you want to be? Choose, then act accordingly. Hal Hirschfield's research on temporal discounting shows that connecting with your future self makes you more likely to make beneficial long-term decisions. Tool 6, the what would it take? Question. Instead of I can't, ask, what would it take for me to do this? This shifts your brain from closed/defensive to open/problem solving. Usually, the answer is simpler than you think. Tool 7, the pre-commitment device. Use Ulysses contracts, binding yourself in advance. Financial commitments, like StickK.com where you lose money if you don't follow through. Social commitments, publicly announcing goals. Environmental commitments, giving someone your phone during work hours. Behavioral economics research shows pre-commitment dramatically increases follow-through because you're deciding during rational clarity, not emotional resistance. Resistance is normal. Distractions are everywhere. Low motivation days are inevitable. None of this means you're failing. It means you're human. The difference between high performers and everyone else isn't that high performers don't face these challenges. They absolutely do. The difference is they have tools and systems that work regardless of how they feel. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to measure and track your progress. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets improved. But right now, identify your biggest source of resistance. Is it distraction? Procrastination? Low motivation? And which tool from this chapter will you use the next time it appears? Because resistance doesn't disappear. You just get better at moving through it. Chapter 8: Accountability and Tracking Progress. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people overestimate their discipline and underestimate their inconsistency. They remember the days they showed up, not the days they didn't. They recall their best performances, not their average ones. This isn't lying, it's just how memory works. Your brain is terrible at accurate self-assessment without data. That's why tracking matters. Not because you're data-obsessed or need to quantify everything, but because measurement creates awareness, awareness creates accountability, and accountability creates change. Why measuring what you do makes you more likely to stick with it. Let's start with the research, because this isn't just productivity advice, it's psychology and behavioral economics. The Hawthorne effect. In the 1920s, researchers studying factory productivity at the Hawthorne Works plant discovered something fascinating. Productivity increased simply because workers knew they were being observed. The act of measurement itself changed behavior. This has been replicated hundreds of times across different domains. People who track their food intake eat healthier. People who track their spending save more. People who track their workouts exercise more consistently. Why? Because tracking creates conscious awareness. You can't ignore or rationalize what you're measuring. The progress principle. Teresa Amabel's research at Harvard Business School analyzed 12,000 diary entries from knowledge workers. The single biggest factor in maintaining motivation and performance? Visible progress. Small wins, when made visible through tracking, create a psychological momentum that feels disproportionate to the actual achievement. Seeing 12 days in a row on your habit tracker activates reward systems in your brain, making day 13 easier to achieve. The feedback loop. Charles Duhigg's work on habit formation emphasizes the importance of immediate feedback. When you track behavior and results, you create a feedback loop that your brain uses to refine strategy. Without tracking, I'm trying to get in shape, but I don't know if it's working. With tracking, I've worked out 23 of the last 30 days, my strength has increased on all lifts, and I've lost 6 pounds. What I'm doing is working. The first creates ambiguity and doubt. The second creates confidence and momentum, setting up systems for self-accountability and external support. Let's build actual systems, not just concepts. The daily tracking system. Keep it stupidly simple. Complex tracking systems die within 2 weeks. Simple systems last forever. The minimum viable tracking. Create a simple spreadsheet or use a habit tracking app with these elements. Core disciplines, 5 to 7 maximum. Sleep hours. Movement yes/no. Deep work blocks, number completed. Nutrition quality, 1 to 10 scale. Key habit, specific to your goal. Track daily. Take 60 seconds. Do it same time every day, attached to existing routine like evening shutdown or morning coffee. Why this works? Binary or simple scoring reduces friction. Limited number of items prevents overwhelm. Daily ritual builds the meta habit of self-reflection. Visual pattern recognition, you'll see trends immediately. The weekly review. Daily tracking captures data. Weekly review extracts meaning. Every Sunday, or your designated review day, spend 15 to 20 minutes. Review. Look at your tracking data. What patterns emerge? Reflect. What worked? What didn't? What got in the way? What helped? Adjust. What one thing will you do differently next week? Plan. Set specific intentions for the coming week. This is inspired by David Allen's GTD methodology and Cal Newport's time blocking practice. The weekly review prevents you from drifting unconsciously through weeks on autopilot. The scorecard method. Create a simple one-page weekly scorecard with your key metrics and targets. Example. Week of date. Deep work hours. Target 20. Actual. ____. Workouts. Target 4. Actual. ____. Sleep average. Target 8 hours. Actual. ____. Key project progress. Target. Specific milestone. Actual. ____. Win of the week. _______________________________________________________________________________________________________________ Lesson learned. Next week focus. Grade yourself at week's end. Not to judge, but to create awareness. The act of scoring triggers conscious evaluation rather than unconscious drift. External accountability, the game changer. Self-accountability is good. External accountability is transformative. Research consistently shows that people who have accountability partners are 65 to 95% more likely to achieve their goals. The mechanism is both psychological, you don't want to let someone down, and practical, someone else notices when you're drifting. Types of external accountability. The accountability partner. Find someone with similar goals and commitment level. Check in daily or weekly, consistency matters more than frequency. Share specific commitments and results, not just feelings. Hold each other to high standards without judgment. The mastermind group. 3 to 5 people meeting weekly or bi-weekly. Each person shares progress, challenges, and commitments. Group provides feedback, ideas, and accountability. Research shows peer accountability groups increase success rates significantly. The coach or mentor. Someone ahead of you who's achieved what you're pursuing. Regular check-ins, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Provides both accountability and guidance. Investment, financial or otherwise, increases commitment. Public commitment. Declare your goals publicly, social media, blog, friends. Share regular updates. Creates reputational stakes, you don't want to publicly fail. Research shows public commitment increases follow-through by 33 to 65%. The key principle: make it harder to quit than to continue. When you've told someone you'll do something, quitting means facing their disappointment and your own embarrassment. Often, that's enough friction to keep you going on days when internal motivation is zero. The financial commitment. This is controversial but effective. Put money on the line. Platforms like StickK.com or BeMinder let you commit financially to your goals. If you don't follow through, you lose money, either to a charity you hate or just into the void. Behavioral economics research shows loss aversion is a powerful motivator. People work harder to avoid losing $50 than to gain $50. Use this bias to your advantage. Celebrating wins, learning from setbacks, and adjusting course. Most people are terrible at both celebrating and analyzing. They either ignore wins entirely or they catastrophize every setback. High performers do neither. They systematically celebrate progress and analytically study failures. Celebrating wins, the dopamine hack. Every win, no matter how small, deserves acknowledgement. This isn't about being soft or participation trophies. It's about neuroscience. When you acknowledge a win, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine reinforces the behavior that led to the reward, making you more likely to repeat it. If you never celebrate wins, you're not giving your brain the reinforcement it needs to sustain the behavior. How to celebrate effectively. Immediate. Mark an X on your habit tracker. Check the box. Move the visual indicator. Immediate feedback is powerful. Weekly. Acknowledge your win of the week. In your review, share it with your accountability partner. Milestone. When you hit major milestones, 30 days consistent, 50 workouts, completed project, do something meaningful. Small reward, special meal, time off, whatever feels like a celebration to you. The key is proportion. Small wins get small acknowledgement. Big wins get bigger celebration. This calibrates your reward system appropriately. Learning from setbacks. The growth mindset in action. Missed a day? Broke the streak? Failed at a goal? Good. You just got data. High performers don't catastrophize setbacks. They mine them for information. The setback analysis. When something doesn't go according to plan, ask these questions. What happened? Facts, not interpretation. What contributed to it? Multiple factors, not just one. What was in my control versus outside my control? What can I learn from this? What will I do differently? This is adapted from sports psychology and military after-action reviews. The goal isn't to beat yourself up, it's to extract lessons and adjust strategy. Example. I missed my workout 3 days this week. What happened? I had early meetings that disrupted my morning routine. What contributed? I didn't plan alternative workout times. I let work meetings override my priorities. What was in my control? My schedule. What can I learn? I need workout flexibility, not just one time slot. What will I do differently? Block 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in my calendar. If I miss morning, I hit evening. No negotiation. That's productive analysis. Compared to, I'm so undisciplined. I always fail. Why do I even try? One leads to adjustment and improvement. The other leads to quitting. Adjusting course, strategic pivots versus abandonment. Here's the tricky part, knowing when to adjust your strategy versus when you're just making excuses to quit. Adjustment questions. Is the goal still aligned with my values and vision? If yes, adjust tactics but keep the goal. If no, permission to pivot. Is my current approach working at all? If yes, stay the course longer. If no, after genuine effort, try a different approach. Am I facing temporary obstacles or fundamental misalignment? Temporary equals push through. Fundamental equals reconsider. Have I given this enough time to work? Most things take longer than expected. Rule of thumb, 90 days minimum before major pivots. The trap is quitting too early disguised as pivoting. The growth is often on the other side of the hard middle phase. But genuine pivots are necessary. If you've legitimately tested an approach for sufficient time and it's not working, that's valuable information. Adjust. The power of trend lines versus single data points. Never make decisions based on single data points. Look at trends. One missed workout? Not a trend. Missing 10 of the last 14 workouts? That's a trend. Something needs to change. One low productivity day? Normal variance. 2 weeks of consistently low productivity? That's a signal. Investigate and adjust. This is why tracking over time matters. You can distinguish between noise, random variation, and signal, actual patterns requiring response. Tracking and accountability aren't about being neurotic or obsessive. They're about creating the feedback loops that turn intention into reality. Without measurement, you're flying blind. You think you're doing better than you are, or worse than you are. Either way, you can't improve what you can't see. With measurement, you have clarity. You know what's working. You know what isn't. You can celebrate real progress and address real problems. In the final chapter, we'll explore how to sustain beast mode long term. Because discipline isn't a sprint project, it's a lifestyle. And maintaining intensity without burning out requires its own skill set. But first, set up your tracking system today. Not tomorrow. Today. Even if it's just a simple checklist on paper. Start measuring. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed becomes part of who you are. Chapter 9: Sustaining Beast Mode Long Term. You've built the systems. You've installed the routines. You've been consistent for weeks, maybe months. You're feeling good. You're in beast mode. And then one day, you wake up exhausted. Not physically tired, soul tired. The routines that felt energizing now feel mechanical. The discipline that felt powerful now feels like a prison. The fire that drove you has become embers. Welcome to the Sustainability Challenge. This is where most high performers stumble. They know how to start strong. They don't know how to last. Discipline isn't a sprint, it's a lifestyle. The biggest misconception about discipline is that it's about constant intensity. Go hard or go home. No days off. No excuses. Maximum effort all the time. That's not discipline, that's a recipe for burnout. Real discipline is about sustainable intensity. It's about building systems that you can maintain not for 90 days, but for 90 years. It's about optimizing for longevity, not just performance. Research from organizational psychology shows a clear pattern. People who maintain high performance over decades, not just years, share a common trait. They've learned to modulate intensity. They have seasons of sprinting and seasons of recovery. They understand rhythm, not just relentlessness. The athletic model. Elite athletes don't train at maximum intensity year-round. They periodize: preparation phases, competition phases, and recovery phases. Each serves a purpose. Each is necessary. Your discipline practice needs the same structure. You can't be in championship mode 365 days a year. You'll break. But you can be in training mode most of the time, with strategic periods of intensity and strategic periods of recovery. The 4 seasons approach. Think of your year in seasons. Season 1: Building, weeks 1 to 12. Focus: establishing new systems and habits. Intensity: moderate, emphasis on consistency. Goal: make discipline automatic. Season 2: Pushing, weeks 13 to 24. Focus: increased intensity and ambitious goals. Intensity: high, but sustainable. Goal: achieve significant milestones. Season 3: Maintaining, weeks 25 to 36. Focus: sustaining systems without pushing for growth. Intensity: moderate, emphasis on balance. Goal: consolidate gains without burnout. Season 4: Recovery, weeks 37 to 48. Focus: reflection, rest, and strategic planning. Intensity: lower, permission to ease off. Goal: recharge and prepare for next cycle. This isn't rigid, it's a framework. Some years you might have 2 intense seasons. Some years just 1. The point is intentional variation, not constant grinding. How to avoid burnout while maintaining intensity. Burnout isn't caused by hard work. It's caused by relentless work without recovery, purpose erosion, and chronic stress without relief. Let's address each factor. Recovery, the non-negotiable. We covered recovery in Chapter 6, but it deserves emphasis here because it's the most commonly skipped element that leads to burnout. Micro-recovery, multiple times daily. 5-minute breathing breaks between intense blocks. Short walks. Stretching or movement. I rest from screens. Brief social interactions. Daily recovery. Evening shutdown routine. Quality sleep, non-negotiable. Activities that restore you, not just distract you. Time in nature. Connection with loved ones. Weekly recovery. 1 full day of rest from intense work. Activities purely for joy. Social connection. Different environments, get out of your usual spaces. Quarterly recovery. 3 to 5 day breaks every 12 weeks. Complete disconnection from work. Travel, nature, or extended rest. Mental and physical reset. Research from the Neuroleadership Institute shows that recovery isn't just absence of work, it's active restoration. Reading fiction, spending time in nature, meaningful social interaction, and creative hobbies all actively restore cognitive resources. Purpose maintenance. Burnout often happens when you lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing. The discipline becomes mechanical ritual divorced from meaning. Quarterly purpose check-in. Every 90 days, revisit these questions. Why does this matter to me? How does my current work serve my larger mission? What impact am I creating? What would I regret not doing? Am I still aligned with my core values? If your answers are vague or uninspiring, that's a warning sign. You need to either reconnect with your purpose or adjust your activities to better align with it. Viktor Frankl's research on meaning shows that people can endure enormous hardship if they have strong purpose. But without purpose, even easy work feels meaningless and draining. Stress management. Chronic stress is the silent killer of sustainable high performance. Some stress is productive, eustress, the kind that challenges and grows you. Chronic unmanaged stress is destructive, distress. The stress management protocol. Identify your stressors, make a list. What consistently creates stress? Which are necessary, productive challenges, and which are unnecessary, drama, poor boundaries, bad systems. Eliminate unnecessary stressors. You have more control than you think. Bad relationships? Boundaries. Overcommitment? Learn to say no. Disorganization? Better systems. Build stress resilience. You can't eliminate all stress, but you can become more resilient to it. Regular exercise, proven stress reducer. Meditation or breath work regulates nervous system. Quality social connections buffer against stress. Adequate sleep, stress recovery happens during sleep. Nature exposure reduces cortisol. Reframe productive stress. Remember Chapter 2? Your interpretation of stress affects its impact. When you view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats, your physiological stress response actually changes. Research from Stanford's Alia Crum shows that people who view stress as enhancing, rather than debilitating, have better health outcomes and performance. Same stress, different framing, different biology. The warning signs. Learn to recognize burnout before it becomes crisis. Early warning signs. Consistent low energy despite adequate sleep. Loss of enthusiasm for things you usually enjoy. Increased cynicism or negativity. Difficulty concentrating. Small tasks feel overwhelming. Increased irritability. Social withdrawal. If you notice these signs, don't power through. That's like ignoring the check engine light in your car. Address it now before the engine fails. Emergency protocol. Take 3 to 5 days completely off. Sleep as much as you need. Move your body gently. Spend time in nature. Connect with people who energize you. Revisit your purpose. Assess what needs to change. Better to take a week off now than to burn out for 6 months later. Replenishing drive, refining goals, and evolving your mental blueprint. Sustaining beast mode isn't about staying the same, it's about intelligent evolution. Replenishing drive. Drive doesn't stay constant. It needs active replenishment. Sources of drive replenishment. New challenges. When current challenges become routine, find new ones. This doesn't mean abandoning current goals, it means finding the next edge within them. Learning. Brain imaging studies show that learning new skills activates reward centers. Keep learning, even in areas unrelated to your main goals. Novel experiences. Routine is powerful for discipline, but novelty is necessary for renewal. Travel, new hobbies, new environments. They all refuel creative and motivational energy. Inspiration from others. Regular exposure to people operating at high levels. Read biographies, watch documentaries, attend conferences, join communities. Inspiration is contagious. Reflection on progress. Regular review of how far you've come. Your brain adapts to success and forgets baseline. Conscious reflection on progress rekindles drive. Contribution to others, teaching, mentoring, or helping others activates purpose-driven motivation. Adam Grant's research shows that prosocial motivation is more sustainable than self-focused motivation. Refining goals. Your goals should evolve. What mattered a year ago might not matter now. That's not failure, that's growth. Annual goal revision. Once a year, do a comprehensive goal audit. Achievement review. What did you accomplish? Celebrate it fully. Relevance check. Are your current goals still meaningful? Do they align with who you're becoming? Strategic pivot. What needs to change? What new goals deserve focus? Systems update. Which systems served you well? Which need updating or abandoning? This isn't about constantly chasing new things. It's about ensuring your efforts remain aligned with what actually matters to you. Angela Duckworth's research on grit emphasizes that grit isn't about never changing goals. It's about perseverance toward your ultimate purpose while being flexible about lower-level goals and tactics. Evolving your mental blueprint. The mental blueprint that got you here won't get you to the next level. Evolution is required. The identity evolution. As you achieve goals and build discipline, your identity shifts. The person who needed strict external systems becomes the person for whom discipline is natural. The person who struggled with consistency becomes the person who's reliable by default. This is good. But it means your systems need to evolve too. Questions for mental blueprint evolution. What beliefs served me then but limit me now? Example. I need perfect conditions to do great work. Served you when you were building focus, but now limits your adaptability. What new capabilities have I developed? You might now have disciplined capacity that allows for more ambitious goals. What's the next level of challenge? Once you've mastered consistent action, maybe the next challenge is strategic action. Doing the right things, not just doing things consistently. Who do I need to become to achieve my next level goals? This isn't about copying others. It's about identifying the capabilities, mindsets, and habits required for your next evolution. The continuous improvement mindset. Japanese concept of Kaizen, continuous, incremental improvement. You're never done improving. There's always a next level. But this should be energizing, not exhausting. It's not about never being satisfied, it's about always being curious about what's possible. The difference is subtle but crucial. Dissatisfaction equals, I'm not good enough. Growth orientation equals, I wonder what I'm capable of. One is self-criticism. The other is exploration. High performers operate from the second. The long game. Here's what sustaining beast mode really means. You're not trying to maximize this week's output. You're optimizing for decades of high performance. That means some weeks you'll operate at 100%. Some weeks at 70%. That's not failure, that's intelligence. You're not competing with anyone else's pace. You're running your race, at your pace, aligned with your purpose. You're not proving anything. You already know you're capable of discipline. Now you're just living it, refining it, enjoying it. Warren Buffett talks about the inner scorecard versus the outer scorecard. The outer scorecard is what others think. The inner scorecard is your own standards. Long-term sustainable excellence comes from the inner scorecard. Define success for yourself. Build your disciplines around that definition. And give yourself permission to evolve as you grow. Sustaining beast mode long-term is about wisdom, not just willpower. It's about understanding that discipline is a tool for building the life you want, not a punishment for not being good enough already. It's about rhythm, intensity and recovery, building and maintaining, pushing and pausing. It's about evolution, refining your systems, updating your goals, growing your capacity. It's about purpose, staying connected to why this matters, beyond just the metrics and achievements. Most importantly, it's about self-compassion. You will have off days. You will break streaks. You will need to adjust. That's not weakness, that's being human. The discipline is in returning, not in never straying. In our final chapter, we'll bring everything together, the principles, the practices, the mindset, into a unified call to action. Because understanding beast mode discipline is one thing. Living it is another. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more audiobook. Conclusion: live in beast mode. We've covered a lot of ground. 9 chapters of neuroscience, psychology, systems, and strategies. But here's the truth. None of it matters if you don't actually do it. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. Understanding without implementation is just theory. So let's bring this home. Key principles of high-performance discipline. Let's distill everything into the core principles, the non-negotiables that make everything else work. Principle 1. Discipline motivation. Stop waiting to feel like it. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is a practice. High performers don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" They ask, "Is this what I do?" And if the answer is yes, they do it. Action creates motivation far more often than motivation creates action. Start moving, and motivation will catch up. Principle 2. Identity outcomes. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, disciplined behaviors flow naturally. They're not forced, they're authentic. Every action is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. Cast your votes intentionally. Principle 3. Environment willpower. You're not trying to be strong enough to resist temptation constantly. You're trying to be smart enough to not encounter it. Design your environment so the right choices are easy and the wrong choices are hard. Your surroundings shape your behavior more than your intentions do. Master environment design, and you've automated discipline. Principle 4. Systems intensity. Consistency beats intensity. The person who works out moderately 6 days a week will outperform the person who trains intensely twice a week. The writer who writes 500 words daily will finish more books than the one who writes 5,000 words when inspired. Build systems you can sustain. Optimize for longevity, not just performance. Principle 5. Energy time. Time management is important, but energy management is fundamental. All the time in the world doesn't help if you're running on empty. Prioritize sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery, not as luxuries, but as prerequisites for performance. Discipline requires fuel. Manage your energy, and discipline becomes easier. Principle 6. Progress perfection. Perfectionism is procrastination in disguise. High performers don't wait for perfect conditions or perfect execution. They start, they iterate, they improve. Done is better than perfect. Consistent is better than occasional excellence. Embrace the messy middle. That's where growth happens. Principle 7. Measurement assumption. You can't improve what you don't measure. Tracking creates awareness. Awareness creates accountability. And accountability creates change. Simple measurement systems maintained consistently beat complex systems abandoned quickly. Track the basics. Review regularly. Adjust based on data, not feelings. Principle 8. Recovery relentlessness. Sustainable high performance requires strategic recovery. You can't operate at maximum intensity indefinitely. Build recovery into your systems. Micro recovery daily, full recovery weekly, deep recovery quarterly. Rest isn't weakness. It's strategy. Principle 9. Purpose process. Discipline without purpose is just grinding. Connect your daily actions to your larger mission. When the work gets hard, and it will, purpose is what sustains you. The why fuels the how. Revisit your purpose regularly. Let it guide your evolution. Final thoughts on making excellence a daily choice. Excellence isn't a destination. It's a daily practice. It's not something you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly. It's something you choose, again and again, in small moments throughout every day. The person you're becoming is built in those moments. The moment you wake up on time instead of hitting snooze. The moment you start working even though you don't feel like it. The moment you choose the healthy meal over the convenient one. The moment you close the laptop and prioritize rest. The moment you return to your practice after breaking the streak. These moments don't feel significant when you're in them. But they compound. Every choice, every action, every day, they're all building something. 10 years from now, you'll be somewhere. The only question is, where? That answer is being written right now, in the choices you make today. The truth about beast mode. Here's what I want you to understand. Beast mode discipline isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about removing everything that's preventing you from becoming who you actually are. you already have discipline capacity. You've demonstrated it before, maybe inconsistently, maybe in limited domains, but you have it. This book isn't about installing something foreign. It's about systematically removing the obstacles, the false beliefs, the poor environments, the energy mismanagement, the lack of systems that have been blocking your natural capacity for excellence. You don't need to become more disciplined. You need to become more systematic, more intelligent about how you design your life, more intentional about your choices. Beast mode isn't a personality trait. It's an operating system, and you can install it, starting today. A call to action: start today. Stay relentless. Be unstoppable. So here's what happens next. You close this book, or finish this document, and you have a choice. You can nod along, think, "That was interesting," and return to your previous patterns. Or you can actually implement. Most people choose the first option. They consume information but never transform. Don't be most people. Your next 24 hours. In the next 24 hours, do these 3 things. 1. Define your minimum viable discipline. Pick one behavior. Make it so small you can't say no. Not 3 behaviors. Not 5. 1. Examples: 1 push-up. 1 conscious breath. 1 sentence written. 5 minutes of focused work. Lay out tomorrow's clothes. That's your starting point. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Build the chain. 2. Design your environment. Pick one environmental change that will make discipline easier. Examples: put your phone in another room at night. Delete social media from your phone. Set out your workout clothes tonight. Put healthy snacks at eye level. Clear your desk completely. Do it today. Right now. Don't wait. 3. Set up simple tracking. Create a simple way to mark when you do your minimum viable discipline. A calendar. A note on your phone. A physical checklist. Doesn't matter. Just create it and use it today. Your next 7 days. Days 1 to 3, just maintain your minimum viable discipline. Nothing else. Build the consistency muscle. Days 4 to 7, add your second behavior if, and only if, the first one feels automatic. Your next 90 days. This is your transformation window. 90 days of consistent action will change your life more than years of inconsistent effort. Weeks 1 to 4, build your core routines. Morning, evening, and the disciplines that matter most. Weeks 5 to 8, refine your environment and systems based on what's working. Weeks 9 to 12, push your intensity. You've built the foundation. Now test your capacity. After 90 days, do a complete review. Look at your tracking data. Assess your progress. Celebrate your wins. Identify what needs adjustment. Then run the next 90 days even better. The promise. If you actually do this, not just read it, but do it, here's what will happen. You'll build capabilities you didn't know you had. You'll achieve things you thought required special talent. You'll become the person who executes when everyone else procrastinates. Not because you're more disciplined than others, but because you've built systems that make discipline inevitable. You'll look back a year from now and barely recognize who you were. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally became fully yourself, the version that isn't held back by poor systems, low energy, and inconsistent execution. The final word. Beast mode discipline is available to you right now. Not someday when you're more ready. Not after you fix everything else in your life. Right now. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need more time. You don't need a better situation. You need to decide. And then you need to act. The person you want to become is waiting on the other side of consistent action. Not perfect action. Not heroic action. Just consistent, systematic, disciplined action. Start today. Do the small thing. Track it. Do it again tomorrow. Build the chain. Protect the chain. Let the chain build you. Stay relentless, not in intensity, but in consistency. Not in perfection, but in showing up. Be unstoppable, Not because nothing can stop you, but because nothing can prevent you from returning. This is beast mode discipline. This is your blueprint. Now go build yourself.